Wife manipulated her way into my family's trust fund, then ran off with the trustee. Now I'm teaming up with his wife for payback. Hi, I'm Evan, 32M. I'm not even sure where to start, but here it goes. For as long as I can remember, I knew my friends weren't really my friends. To them, I was the trust fund kid, the guy they thought would throw wild parties, pop champagne bottles, and bankroll their good times. They stuck around, hoping for lavish vacations or open tabs at the bar, but once they realized I wasn't that guy, they disappeared just as fast. Yeah, it's true, my parents set up a hefty trust fund for me. But I've seen how hard they worked to build that fortune. I know how fragile it is. One wrong move, and it could all collapse. That's why I've worked my ass off every single day to grow what my dad started. I didn't want to be just the trust fund baby. But recently, I almost made the one mistake that could have ruined it all. My wife, Haley, 29F, was everything I thought I wanted. Back in college, I didn't date much. I wasn't into casual hookups or flings. I always told myself I'd date with the intention of getting married. But once word got out about my family's wealth, I started attracting all the wrong people, the ones who saw dollar signs instead of me. Sure, I lent money to a few friends and paid for the occasional round of drinks, but nothing crazy. I wasn't living the high-roller lifestyle they expected. I believed in moderation, staying connected but not getting used. Then, at my graduation party, I met Haley. She seemed different, like she didn't know who I was or what my last name meant. We talked for hours, just vibing, and it felt normal. We exchanged numbers, and for our first date, I took her to McDonald's. Classy, right? But it was perfect. No fancy dinners, no flashy scenes, just us, laughing over fries. I was hooked. Haley felt real. She wasn't trying too hard. She was smart, funny, and, for the first time, I felt like someone was seeing me, just me, not my bank account. After a month of dating, I introduced her to my parents. She didn't even flinch when she realized how wealthy my family was. No wide-eyed surprise, no awkward comments, just calm acceptance. At the time, I thought, wow, she really doesn't care about the money. Looking back, it was probably part of her plan all along. She knew exactly who I was from day one. But I didn't see it. I was head over heels. She was elegant, charming, and my parents adored her. She was the first woman I'd ever brought home, and they were thrilled. We dated for a year. During that time, Haley never accepted expensive gifts. She'd say, "We're not married yet. It wouldn't feel right." That only made me trust her more. So, of course, I proposed after that year. She had only one request before we tied the knot, that my family never pressure her to quit her job. She wanted to keep working and contribute to our future. My mom teared up and hugged her, calling her the perfect addition to the family. Haley worked in IT and made decent money on her own. Everything seemed perfect. On our second anniversary, my parents hosted a huge party. It was one of those classy, over-the-top events, string lights, champagne towers, the works. That night, they announced they were adding Haley as a beneficiary to the family trust. It was their way of welcoming her fully into the family. That's when I met Scott, the trustee. He was the guy who handled the legal side of the funds. Married, with a daughter, and his wife, Amanda, was a lawyer at the same firm. Everything felt secure. Haley's name was added, and that was that. Haley seemed over the moon. She bonded with my parents, attended every family event, and kept up the perfect daughter-in-law act. She worked a lot, traveled for her job, and I trusted her. Completely. But I should have seen the signs. At parties, I noticed her laughing a little too much with Scott, standing in corners, drinks in hand, whispering and blushing. But I brushed it off. She was sociable, that's all. Besides, Scott was married, and I trusted both of them. Looking back now, it's shocking how blind I was. Haley was a master manipulator. She played her part flawlessly, the loving wife, the dedicated daughter-in-law, the independent woman who didn't need my money. But it was all an act. Almost 7 years into our marriage, everything started to crumble. My parents passed away, both within 6 months of each other. I was shattered. I threw myself into work, trying to keep the company afloat while grieving. And that's when everything spiraled. After the funeral, Haley started showing her true colors. She became distant, cold, almost like a stranger. I figured maybe she was grieving in her own way, so I gave her space. But it was weird. She never once asked how I was holding up after losing both my parents. Not a word. I thought it was strange, but deep down, I blamed myself for not being able to open up about my own emotions. 2 weeks passed before I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I left work early one day, thinking maybe we just needed to talk things out. On my way home, I bought a bunch of pink roses, her favorite. I was still holding on to hope that we could reconnect, that maybe this was just a rough patch. I let myself into the house, and there he was, Scott. At first, I was confused. I thought maybe he was there on business, something about the trust fund or paperwork. But then Haley appeared from behind him, dragging 2 suitcases. That's when I noticed Scott had luggage too. Haley looked at me, completely unbothered, and said, "Oh well, I was hoping to do this quietly. I meant to leave a note, but I guess we're doing this face to face. I'm leaving you." Yep, you heard that right. And yeah, I'm moving in with Scott. I just stood there, frozen, flowers still in my hand. She kept going, like she was reading a grocery list. After we get back from our vacation in Spain, your parents made sure I'd have enough money to live comfortably. So yeah, we're divorcing. Scott's filing too. Then she noticed the roses in my hand, smiled, and said, "Ah, are those for me? How sweet. I'll take them. Thanks." Before I could even process what was happening, they were out the door. I heard the car start, the engine revving up, and then silence. And that was it. 7 years of marriage, gone. You know that feeling when the world just collapses around you? Yeah, that. For 2 days, I didn't leave the house. I didn't open the blinds. I lived off whatever was in the fridge and ate instant noodles when that ran out. The TV stayed on the whole time because I couldn't stand the silence. I didn't shower, didn't change clothes. I was stuck in this fog. On the third day, the doorbell rang. I ignored it, hoping whoever it was would just go away. But they didn't. The ringing got more persistent, each buzz longer and more aggressive. 10 minutes passed, and now whoever it was started banging on the door. At that point, I honestly thought about just hiding in the bedroom. But the knocking wouldn't stop. And then I heard a woman's voice shouting, "I know you're in there. Open up right now. I'm not leaving until you do." The banging on the door got louder. Then I heard a woman's voice shout, "I know you're in there. Open up right now. I'm not leaving until I talk to you." For a split second, I thought it was Haley, but then I remembered. She was probably living it up in Spain with Scott. That realization hit me like a brick. Another wave of sadness washed over me, but the relentless knocking didn't stop. Dragging myself out of bed, I shuffled to the door, barely able to keep my head up. I unlocked it and opened the door to find a red-haired woman standing there in a sharp two-piece suit, looking like she was about to rip me apart. "Your wife ran away with my husband," she said flatly. "Sitting here like this isn't going to help. Get up, take a bath, and meet me in the living room in 15 minutes. We need to talk." I just stared at her. Without waiting for an answer, she pushed past me, wrinkled her nose, and added, "You stink." I muttered under my breath, "Okay, Mom." She spun around and barked. I heard that, and for the first time in days, I actually laughed, a real, stupid, out-of-place laugh. It felt weirdly good. I did what she said, took a shower, threw on clean clothes, and when I came back to the living room, it was spotless, like, magically spotless. Even the kitchen looked cleaner than I'd ever seen it. She was sitting there, flipping through some papers. "I'm Amanda," she said, without looking up. "Scott's wife." That snapped me out of my daze. I sat down across from her, still processing. She told me she'd been trying to reach me at work for 2 days, but couldn't get through. So, she showed up at my doorstep. I could tell she meant business. She laid it out fast, just like ripping off a Band-Aid. I had no idea Scott was cheating on me. None. Until 2 days ago when he just left. Said he'd send someone to pick up his stuff. I stared at her, speechless. "But I didn't sit around crying," she continued. I started digging. First stop, his laptop. Idiot left it unlocked. I went through everything. Found his Facebook logged in. Saw the messages between him and Haley. All of it. My heart sank. "And it gets worse," she added. "I found files on the trust fund, your trust fund." Scott was slowly siphoning off money. Small amounts at first, so it wouldn't get flagged. But it got bolder. And guess who was helping him? I already knew the answer, but I asked anyway. "Haley?" Amanda nodded. Yep. She was in on it the whole time. I wanted to believe she was lying, that this was some twisted misunderstanding, but I could see it in her eyes. She wasn't bluffing. She had the receipts. "I'm going to destroy them," Amanda said calmly. "I'm going to wring every last penny out of Scott and make sure Haley pays for what she did." I hesitated, still trying to process everything. "You don't have to be part of this," she added. "But I have a daughter, Emily. I'm doing this for her." That's when I realized Amanda wasn't just angry, she was on a mission. She was fierce, determined, and weirdly, I felt like I could trust her. "All right," I said. "I'm in." So, I was in. Fully on board. While Haley was probably sipping wine in Spain with Scott, Amanda and I were busy planning their downfall, and trust me, it was going to cost them dearly. When they got back from their 10-day getaway, Amanda and I waited for the inevitable. We knew they'd be blindsided, and we wanted front row seats when reality hit. It was a Monday, and I was at work when my phone buzzed. Haley's name lit up the screen. I hesitated before answering, already bracing myself. The moment I picked up, she exploded. "What the hell is going on? What does Scott mean when he says we're in trouble? And where's my money?" I almost laughed. "You mean my parents' money? The money Scott was using to buy you gifts and that fancy apartment? I assume you've heard from my lawyer, Amanda, Scott's wife." "Yeah, she works at the same firm." I didn't give her a chance to respond. "I gotta go," I said and hung up. I thought that would be it, but nope. When I left work that evening, there she was, Haley, waiting by my car. I tried to ignore her, but she stepped right in front of me, blocking my path. I had never seen her like that. Disheveled, frantic, like she had no control over anything for the first time in her life. She pleaded, "Can you please just explain what's going on? Scott's making no sense, and I need to hear it from you." I stared at her for a moment before finally saying, I spoke to your lawyer. The divorce is happening, and you're not getting a single cent. I wish I could describe her face, the sheer panic that took over her. For a split second, I felt a cruel sense of satisfaction. But almost immediately, guilt crept in. I still loved her, or at least, I loved who I thought she was. It was hard seeing her break down like that, even after everything. I turned and started walking to my car. That's when she snapped. How could you do this to me? She screamed after me. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I wanted to turn around and yell, I could ask you the same damn thing. But I didn't. I got in my car and drove off. In the rearview mirror, I saw her standing there, completely lost. Meanwhile, Amanda had been busy. Scott was officially terminated from the company. His affair had leaked, and clients started pulling out left and right. The firm needed damage control, and the easiest fix? Fire him. Amanda, being the absolute force she was, had lined up the best legal team. She was confident she'd win full custody of Emily and bleed Scott dry. I got all these updates from Amanda on my drive home, and for the first time in weeks, I felt lighter. When I got home, I sat down and started writing this. I don't know, my run-in with Haley messed with my head. I still feel guilty. I still care, even after everything. So, Reddit, tell me, am I going too hard on Haley? Update 1. Hey everyone, I'm back with an update. It's been a week, and wow, what a week it's been. First off, thank you all for your support, seriously. Reading through the comments helped more than I thought it would. I even showed my therapist this post during my first session. He said it was a solid way to process everything, to get it out. He also told me that what I'm going through, the confusion, the guilt, it's all part of grieving the person I thought Haley was. Makes sense, I guess. So, here's what happened this week. Haley called me again, but this time, her tone was different, softer. Her voice was shaky, like she'd been crying. She started with, have you had dinner? I said no. Then she hit me with, do you want me to come over and cook for you? I was stunned, completely blindsided. I stayed quiet for too long, I think, because she took that as a yes. I'll be there in half an hour, she said. That snapped me out of it. No, you won't. Are you kidding me? After everything, you want to come over here and play house? She paused for a second. Maybe. No. I know things have been bad, but we can talk. That's when I lost it. You call what you did bad? Just bad? It was evil, brutal, selfish. To hell with you. I don't ever want to see your face again. What the actual F*** is wrong with you? And then, this part still makes my stomach turn, she told me to stop overreacting. That was it. The switch flipped. Up until that moment, I've been battling this guilt. Feeling bad for hurting her, for cutting her out so harshly. But hearing her say that? It was like seeing her for who she really was, someone who didn't regret anything. Someone who would do it all over again without thinking twice. She kept rambling, oblivious to my realization, going on about how I was making her look like a gold digger in the lawsuit, how unfair that was because she had a job and made her own money. I wanted to scream. You mean the life you're living because I paid off all your student debt? The comfort you have because of me and my family. But I stayed quiet. Then she hit me with, I just thought we could talk, maybe work things out. You can drop the lawsuit. It's pointless anyway. I asked, and what about Scott? Her response? Scott was just different. I was with him because he brought excitement to my monotonous life. She even started blaming me, saying I was never around, that I was too focused on work, that I was boring and lacked passion. And instead of apologizing to her, I was suing her. I was done. I told her if she had problems, she could have talked to me. We could have gone to therapy, tried to fix things. But cheating? That was never the answer. She ignored it all and kept pushing, insisting on coming over. That's when I hung up and called Amanda. I told her everything. And now, I'm waiting to see what our next move is. After I told Amanda everything, she hit me with an idea, risky but brilliant. Call Haley back, she said. Invite her over. I'll come too, but let's see what her real motive is. Play along. I hesitated for a second, but then dialed Haley. She picked up almost instantly, her voice smug and way too confident. I knew you'd come around, she said, all sweet and fake. I'll be there in half an hour. Great. Amanda showed up before Haley arrived, carrying this mysterious bag like she was plotting world domination. She didn't have time to explain the full plan, but told me, when she gets here, sit her in the dining room. I'll handle the rest. About 40 minutes later, Haley showed up, dolled up, looking like she was about to attend a gala, not face the fallout of an affair. She walked in, gave me a kiss on the cheek like nothing had happened, and started heading toward the bedroom. The same bedroom where Amanda was hiding. I stopped her. Let's sit in the dining room. She turned around, pouting. Why, sweetheart? Did I lose my right so easily? Was your love that weak? Won't you fight for us? Before I could answer, Amanda appeared from the hallway. Haley's face turned white. Her jaw dropped, and she barely managed to get out. What the hell? Amanda smiled, ice cold. Ah, finally, the woman sleeping with my useless husband. Oh, And yes, you definitely lost your right to the bedroom. Haley whipped around to face me, instantly on the offensive. How could you do this to me? You're sleeping with her after everything? After taking away all my happiness? We had so many debts, and now we won't even get that damn trust fund money. And someone leaked the news. Now Scott's jobless, and I might get fired too. You're so selfish. Amanda chimed in. Debts? Like joint loans? Or were you helping Scott siphon money from the trust? Haley snapped, her mask finally cracking. Hell yeah, I was. Scott couldn't have pulled this off on his own. I helped him. Unlike you, Amanda. You were always condescending to him. That's why he chose me. You should leave. Why are you even here? Your husband's jobless, and you won't even help him get back on his feet. Amanda didn't even flinch. She turned to me and smiled. I think it's time to send Haley home. We got what we needed. That's when I noticed the small recorder in her hand. Amanda hit stop and winked at me. We got the confession, she said, practically glowing with satisfaction. They're done. I told you. I'm not letting either of them walk away clean. Haley, realizing what had just happened, started shouting more insults as I opened the door. She stormed out, still cursing us, but I didn't care. It was over. I turned to Amanda. Did that really just happen? She grinned. Oh, and by the way, it was me who leaked the news about Scott. I laughed, shaking my head. I should have known. You're ruthless. She shrugged. You have to be in situations like this. And that's Amanda for you. Clever, calculated, and completely terrifying. If I were Haley or Scott, I'd be losing sleep right about now. The game has officially begun. I'll keep you posted. Update 2. So, remember that little confession we got from Haley? Yeah, Amanda didn't waste any time. She sent the tape straight to Haley's company, but she didn't just drop it off anonymously. Oh no, she included a detailed note explaining everything. She made sure they knew exactly who Haley was, someone willing to manipulate, lie, and betray the people closest to her. Amanda even hinted that if Haley could pull this off in her personal life, what's stopping her from embezzling company funds if the opportunity arose? But that wasn't all. Amanda also had an ace up her sleeve. One of the business partners at Haley's firm was an old friend of hers. And guess what? That friend pulled out of a major deal Haley's team was working on, citing concerns about team integrity. Boom. Deal gone. Haley's boss went ballistic. The company couldn't risk the fallout, so they did the only thing they could. They fired Haley. Just like that, my ex-wife was jobless. Now both Haley and Scott were unemployed, drowning in debt, and scrambling. Amanda filled me in on all this over the phone, and honestly, I was loving every second of it. I know that sounds dark, but after everything they did, it felt satisfying. She also told me that Scott had been blowing up her phone nonstop. When she didn't answer, he switched to texts, long, desperate, and pathetic. Eventually, she told him to stop harassing her and blocked his number. And here's the cherry on top, Scott got himself arrested. Not for anything major, but still, poetic justice. And guess who had to bail him out? Yep, Haley. She had to dip into her savings, the same savings they thought they'd be living large on, to get him out. Meanwhile, I've been keeping up with therapy, and it's actually helping. My therapist even joked that Haley should be a case study in narcissism. I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in what felt like forever. So yeah, things are getting interesting. I'll keep you guys posted. This is far from over. Update 3. This morning was intense. Amanda called me, absolutely furious. Apparently, Scott had shown up at her house at the crack of dawn, drunk out of his mind. He was pounding on her door, yelling, cursing, calling her every name in the book. The security cameras caught everything. When Amanda opened a window and told him to leave, he tried to force his way inside. He only backed off when she threatened to call the cops. But here's the worst part. Emily, their daughter, woke up because of all the noise. She saw it all. Her drunk father screaming at her mom, trying to break into their home. I can't even imagine what that felt like for a kid. Divorce is hard enough on children, but this was another level. Emily locked herself in her room and refused to come out. Amanda had to head to the police station to file a restraining order against Scott, but she couldn't find a babysitter on short notice. She called me, her voice shaking with anger and exhaustion, and asked if I could come over. Of course, I said yes. I called my office, let them know I'd be offline for the day, and headed straight to her place. Before leaving, Amanda asked me to check on Emily. The poor kid hadn't even eaten breakfast. When I got there, I gently knocked on Emily's door. No response. A sinking feeling hit me. I grabbed a pin, unlocked the door, and pushed it open, fearing the worst. The room was empty, but then I noticed movement under the bed. Emily was curled up, hiding. She looked so tiny, her wide eyes filled with pure terror. She stuttered, "Hey, are you my dad's friend? Did he send you?" That broke me. I knelt down and spoke as softly as I could. "No, sweetie. I'm your mom's friend. I'm here to help." She relaxed just a little but kept glancing out the window. "Is my dad gone?" she asked, her voice trembling. I nodded. "He's gone. And your mom? She's like a tigress. She'll protect you no matter what." That's when she broke down, crying, saying she was scared her dad would come back and hurt her mom. I promised her that wouldn't happen. I told her I'd stay and keep them both safe. It took a while, but I finally convinced her to come out from under the bed. We ended up watching her favorite Disney movie, and I made her some lasagna, which, surprisingly, she actually ate. By the time Amanda got back, Emily was fast asleep on my chest, clutching her favorite pillow. I was dozing off too. When I got up to leave that evening, Emily clung to my legs, crying, begging me not to go. She was terrified Scott would come back, and there'd be no one there to protect her mom. I tried to lighten the mood, joking, "Your mom doesn't need protecting, she's tougher than me." Amanda just rolled her eyes at that. It's nearly impossible to explain things like restraining orders to a kid, so I decided to stay the night. Emily slept peacefully, and, surprisingly, so did I. The next morning, Amanda made pancakes, hands down, some of the best I've ever had. As I was leaving for work, Emily made me promise I'd come back that night. So, yeah, I guess this is my life now. Spending my nights at Amanda's house, making sure Emily feels safe. Amanda's been looking for a good child psychologist, but no luck so far. Update 4. The first court hearing is officially done. And let me tell you, Haley and Scott, they're cooked. Like, beyond well done. Think barbecue left on the grill too long, that level of cooked? We walked into that courtroom with so much evidence it almost felt like overkill. Even I, someone with zero legal background, could tell this was an open and shut case. But, of course, the courts love to drag things out, so Amanda says it'll still take about 6 months before it's all wrapped up. The best part? Amanda's lawyer is confident both Haley and Scott will end up serving time. As for the divorce proceedings, Haley and Scott aren't getting a single cent robbed themselves of that when they decided to play Bonnie and Clyde. Scott, on top of everything else, has to pay child support. Good luck with that, considering neither of them can hold down a job. From what I've heard, Scott's now working as a janitor at some local club. Quite the downgrade for Mr. Trust Fund embezzler. And here's where it gets even juicier. Outside the courthouse after the hearing, we actually saw Scott getting jumped by what I can only assume were loan sharks. Yep, the dude's in so deep he's now getting beat up in broad daylight. After that mess, Scott, bruised and bloody, ran up to Amanda, dropped to his knees, and begged her to take him back. Full-on sobbing. It was pathetic. Amanda didn't even flinch. She just walked past him like he was invisible. Her lawyer later told us the case is so stacked in her favor that Scott likely won't even get visitation rights with Emily. Honestly? Good. That kid doesn't need that kind of chaos in her life. We're so close to the finish line now. A few more months, and this will all finally be over.